Good morning. Welcome to the garden. I'm glad you've made time in your day to be a part of us here this morning. And if this happens to be your first time here, we're not always like this, although we probably should be a lot more than we are. But anyway, welcome. I hope it offers a break in your day. And I've also had several of you say, why are we not saying go Pacers? Well, they seem to be doing quite well without us doing it, and I don't want to jinx them, but aren't they doing well? Isn't that great? Yeah. One more win, we'll be in the finals, and I think we can beat the Heat, so we'll see. So we'll see how that all goes. At any rate, a month or so ago, I was working with the Wednesday morning group over at St. Luke's, and it was the day that we had decided that we were going to work on writing our personal mission statement. And I used material that came out of Lori Beth Jones' book entitled The Path. One of the things she asks, or she does in preparation for writing a mission statement, is take people back to their childhood, to earlier days. And one of the questions is asked, well, what were the activities that you enjoyed most as a child? And so I asked the group that, and it was really interesting, the answers I got. I got swinging on a swing, or roller skating, or riding a bike, or, all kinds of things like that. And so I wonder what you would say if I asked you that question. I imagine the answers, at least some of them, would be similar. There might be some other things too. But what about if I ask you, what about now? What do you do for play now? I wonder what kind of answers, if any, we would have then. Now, whether we're equipped with training for early childhood development or not, most of us realize that play is an important activity for children because it's what helps them develop into a healthy, normal adult. It's part of how they learn to communicate and interact with other people. We can see their imagination start to develop as they get into pretend play and all of those kinds of things. They begin to get exposed a little bit to the world and start to figure out just what the world is really like. And we also know that they develop some of the skills that they need for more advanced cognitive learning. The opposite of that, unfortunately, is not a very bright picture. The lack of play opportunities as a child can lead to some pretty negative results. Stuart Brown became a professor at the Baylor School of Medicine in Houston right as a horrible, violent crime took place on that campus. And in the aftermath, he decided to conduct a pilot study. And he went to talk to perpetrators of violent crimes. And what he discovered was that most of them had two characteristics in common. One was that they came from abusive families, and the second was that they had simply not had any opportunities to play as children. After he had interviewed some 6,000 more people in subsequent years, he discovered that the lack of opportunities for unstructured, creative play can really keep children from developing into healthy, well-adjusted adults. So play is extremely important for the development of our children. I guess it's kind of popular these days that parents arrange play dates for their children. Now, I'm never totally sure when I hear this happening if it's really the parents are trying to get together with other parents that they like, and so they want their children to be friends with those children, or if it starts with the children. But at any rate, I've seen some of this happen. A time or two I've been with Maddie on a playground, for example, and I see the adults over here just chatting away, having a wonderful time, and in some cases paying absolutely no attention to their children. But to the children's credit, they're getting along quite fine. They interact really well with any kind of parental intervention. But sometimes I just wonder why the play has to be so orchestrated and planned so that it happens. Maybe it's for perhaps the wrong reason. However, if we examine cultural attitudes toward play, something happens when we talk about the play with children and play with adults. Because when we talk about play with adults, it's often seen as a frivolous waste of time. Someone went through, conducted a bit of a survey with people and talked about all across the lifespan and the importance of play there. 100% of the people who were interviewed agreed that children should have at least 6 hours of play every single week. 90% of those same people said that adults should have time of play each week, and 6 hours sounded like a good time. However, if they were pressed, if they were asked how many hours of play they actually got in, only 39% of them said they came anywhere near having that. Some had totally left play out of their lives. What that means for the most part is that instead of having some time and energy put toward rejuvenating and having that play, we spend it working. And as a result, we wind up getting stressed and overworked and often underappreciated. And so we need to think about how play can make a difference with that. Jesus didn't exactly talk about play and talk about stress, but yet the Bible passage we have for this morning, I think, can help us understand how he was able to see and understand ordinary life. This is from Matthew's Gospel, and this is what the writer says. Jesus said, "Are you tired, worn out, burned out on religion? Come to me, get away with me, and you'll recover your life. I'll show you how to take a real rest. Walk with me and work with me. Watch how I do it. Learn the unforced rhythms of grace." Now, as you see, there's never the word play, there's never the word stress there. Eugene Peterson put together the version we have, which is called The Message. And he also has a little guide if you search by a key word to see where stress shows up. And he uses this passage as an illustration of stress. And I think he's right on target, because I think Jesus understood that daily life is filled with its own kind of stresses, and that we need to experience, to learn those unforced rhythms of grace. I really, really like that phrase, because what that says to me is that there is this rhythm that we go through. There's a time where we work, and there's a time when we are away from work. Sometimes that can be for rest or relaxation, and sometimes it's important that there be playtime too, because it can help us decompress a little bit and get rid of some of the anxiety and stress that we carry. Now, as you saw, the word play wasn't there at all. And yet, if we look at other stories about Jesus, we're going to find that he spent lots of time with friends. He would go to their homes, and I'll bet there was a lot of laughter and, who knows, a playful kind of spirit and attitude that took place there. And I'm sure he understood the value of having play in our lives. Well, I think play is a really important thing for us as adults to reincorporate into our lives, because it will help us deal with some of life. It will help reduce our stress that we all carry in one way or another. It will make us healthier people, spiritually, mentally, physically, emotionally. It is an antidote against depression and isolation and fear. And it also, it's been discovered in the workplace, play can actually increase our productivity and our capacity for imagination and creativity. Take a look and see what I mean. I suppose we all have different ideas when it comes to play, but Scott Eberly, who's the editor of the American Journal of Play, says this: "Defining play is difficult because it's a moving target. It's a process, not a thing." He says it begins with anticipation and hopefully ends in poise. And then he says this: "In between, you find surprise, pleasure, understanding, a skill and empathy, and strength of mind, body, and character." Author, psychiatrist, and founder of the National Institute for Play, Stuart Brown, whom I mentioned earlier, compares play to oxygen. And he says it's all around us, yet goes mostly unnoticed or unappreciated until it's missing. And if you stop to think about it, opportunities for play are all around us. It's in art and music and books and movies and comedy and even in our own daydreaming. Play can be all kinds of things. It can be games, like card games or board games. In fact, I was thinking back to my younger days and my growing up days, and without my ever realizing it, my family, my mom and dad, had a really hard life, I think. And yet I remember many an evening when they and some friends were sitting around our kitchen table playing euchre, and all the laughter that would always come from when they were playing. And I don't know that they realized what was happening, but I think it was just kind of a relief from what they went through and sort of the heaviness that they often carried around in the course of every single day. So play can be all kinds of things. I've had the opportunity lately to chase bubbles with our granddaughter and blowing bubbles. It's great fun. And you know, sometimes play for us, for adults, can be getting into some of our hobbies, whether that's painting or drawing or music or knitting or gardening, or it can be absolutely all kinds of things. It can be sports as well, at least as long as they don't emphasize the winning as opposed to losing aspect. I get an opportunity to observe some of that, usually in the course of a week, because Mike and I go to the Monon Center to walk most mornings, and a couple of days a week there's a group of guys that get together to play basketball on the courts that are below the track there. And it's pretty clear that most of them have played basketball at some level or another in the course of their past. And so for the most part, we just watch them play, and there's this positive kind of fun-loving atmosphere that goes on. But every once in a while, we'll hear this word of profanity, you know, reaching up to the rafters, or you'll see somebody bang their arm against one of the padded stanchions on the basketball goal. And when I see that or hear that, I begin to think, kind of missing the point of play. It kind of defeats the whole purpose of it. You see, the kind of play that is healthy and good for us is the kind of play where we really get in the flow of things. It's a flow-like experience. And what I mean by that is we really get into what we're doing so much that we forget our troubles and that we're totally into what's happening for the right now. Psychologists have a word for that. They call it eustress, E-U-S-T-R-E-S-S. It's the good kind of stress. It's the kind of stress that keeps us vital and alive. It's the kind of thing we feel when we're riding a roller coaster or completing a project. It's that kind of excitement that happens to us, and it's important. So we as adults need to reincorporate play into our lives too, because it will make us better people. It certainly does help us by reducing the stress that we experience. It can give us a more positive attitude because there's often play, laughter involved with it. And when we laugh, it kind of lifts our spirits. It does help us connect and keep our relationships strong. And it also buffers us from stress and burnout that can really be life-depleting. So, I'm going to make a suggestion. I think every one of us should incorporate into every single day a playcation in our lives. Now, only 3 criteria are necessary to do that. 1, we have to have a fun-loving, playful attitude. We have to find family or friends who can be our playmates, and it has to be affordable. And if you stop to think about it, the possibilities are absolutely endless. So, let's play.